45 Huge advantages. The enemy planes are still accelerating, I'm pretty sure it's the F-16. Captain Roll pushed the throttle valve to afterburner. He was a little worried about the fuel level, but the enemy was within range. The captain hesitated for a few seconds. Increase the speed above the speed of sound, and now is the time to hunt down the enemy. The captain knew very well that the MiG-29 he was driving had a fatal flaw, that is, the backward vision was not good, and the enemy planes that were easily attacked approached from the rear, so he kept a mind and let the number 3 wingman be dragged 4 kilometers behind. After the local surveillance side, he thought that such an arrangement was foolproof. At this time, Sammy's team, guided by the early warning aircraft, was outflanking this team of Indian fighters from the rear, and the Indian aircraft was completely kept in the dark. Sammy knew that the Trident's MiG-29B wasn't such a good plane. The modernization of these planes had never been completed, and the new Zook radar had not arrived because of the war. The old-fashioned pulse Doppler radar makes it almost impossible for such aircraft to hit targets beyond the line of sight in a down-and-down manner. However, Sammy also knew that the close-quarters combat prowess of the aircraft should not be underestimated. In particular, the Thunderbolt fighter uses a similar engine to the MiG-29. The difference is that the MiG-29B uses 2 engines, while the Thunderbolt uses only 1. Sammy has no experience with the MiG-29. He estimates that the MiG-29 may be slightly better in climbing, while in Jaya. On the hovering at the speed of sound, thunder and lightning are not too cheap. I tell you, their trick is to aim their helmets and fire R-73 missiles, so you have to keep an eye on them. If they do, don't be in a daze, just maneuver. No matter where you fly, the hit rate of these missiles is close to 0. Sammy said on the radio, something he had told his pilot more than once before. He has always been well aware that helmet aiming is a crude lock for the limited field of view of an infrared missile, and the missile seeker actually sees nothing, except that the pilot roughly measures the azimuth of the opposing aircraft, and then the missile flies to the target according to the preset route, but if the target it flies to maintains the original route, this method is still able to hit the target at the 4 o'clock and 10 o'clock positions. Never let them turn around. We have an absolute advantage 4-2. Sammy's way of thinking, a MiG-29 behind can be shot down by a sneak attack, so it doesn't count in the air combat section. Captain, will the Griffin team come back and help us? Uhak dare not come back. He knows I'm not easy to mess with, Sammy said, deliberately letting the sentence let Major Uhak hear through the radio that he doesn't want Uhak to turn back and make the battlefield more chaotic. Captain Black Spider, if you have any action, don't hesitate. Thanks to Allah, it's been a miracle that we persisted until now. Their fire control radar has been scanning us. It really surprised him to think that Sammy was still worried about something like that. The Black Spider squad has completed the turn. Now, the MiG-29 that was pulled at the end is in front and cannot be seen visually, but Sammy can see from the multifunction display that the opponent is accelerating 10 kilometers away at a speed of about 10 kilometers. Mach 0.9. All this is due to the 270-kilometer Ericsson system and a self-developed data link similar to the Link 16 developed by Pakistan, which allows Colonel Sammy not to use the fighter's own radar search, which will undoubtedly alert the enemy. Now he can approach enemy planes from behind with his favorite sneak attack. From the perspective of information asymmetry, Captain Roll is already in a situation where he will lose. In all modern air battles, few fighter planes can turn around from such an unfavorable state. The fighter's radar cannot be used in terms of search distance or search angle. On a PAR with early warning aircraft, Captain Roll almost broke into this alarming trap with his eyes darkened. The 4 Raiden fighters were lined up at an altitude of 4,000 meters and separated by a distance of 500 meters. They searched for the enemy visually. Soon Sammy saw the wake of the MiG-29 at the same altitude. Then Lieutenant Abbas on the side saw the reflection of the cabin of the MiG-29 in the distance in the sun, about 8 to 9 kilometers away. As soon as the colonel gave an order, the Thunder team immediately accelerated their pursuit. Due to the relatively rich fuel, the Samurai aircraft group accelerated to Mach 1.5. In a very short time, they caught up within a few kilometers behind the MiG-29. To be on the safe side, the colonel gathered the team. Shaped to prevent enemy pilots from accidentally looking back at their squad, Sammy decided not to use the fire control radar. In such an ideal position, it seemed unnecessary to use the radar. He turned on the power of the missile seeker and directly used the PL-5E seeker to lock the target on his own. He first stabilized the plane, watched the artificial horizon on the HUD no longer swing, and then put the Bandit into the center of the HUD. After a while, the Bandit basically coincided with the speed vector sign. This is not an aiming mark, but when the plane flies stably and straightly, the mark representing the speed direction stays roughly up and down the axis of the plane, which is consistent with the direction of the nose. Because the center of the plane's HUD does not have a fixed plus mark pointing forward, if the velocity vector stays in the middle of the HUD, then the colonel can basically determine the field of view of the infrared missile plus or minus 2 degrees. After more than 10 seconds, the sound of DD's seeker locking sounded, and the missile had intercepted the target. Sammy checked the distance visually, about 2 to 3 kilometers, which roughly matched the 3 kilometers measured by the early warning aircraft. It seemed that the size of the MiG-29 was larger. The colonel used PL-5 to directly try to aim at the single-shot MiG-21 and locked the distance. Only about 1 kilometer. The colonel pressed the launch button without hesitation, and according to his preset 2-round salvo method, the two missiles flew away from the pylon one after another, and the large initial speed flew towards the unaware enemy aircraft. The first missile hit the vertical tail on one side, and the second exploded near the wing on the other side. The MiG-29 immediately spiraled and disintegrated. Everything was as expected. The colonel immediately lowered his head to look at the huge multifunction display. The information sent by the early warning aircraft data link showed that the MiGs in front had really given up the attack, and they began to turn left and flee to the south. Although the opponent could not see himself at all, the colonel found that the Indian leader in this formation had a fairly low and accurate judgment of the battlefield situation, and he clearly knew the direction of danger. Sammy couldn't help but secretly regret it. Just now, two planes should have been arranged to fly a certain distance south, and now they are just blocked. We catch up. They can't keep flying south. They will definitely turn back to Indian airspace before the fuel runs out. Squadron Captain, we are running out of fuel, Abbas reminded. Where's Griffin? The colonel asked, looking down at the two F-16s still on the run, only slightly elevated. Captain Griffin, you are closest to the enemy plane, return to the battlefield immediately. Sammy shouted on the radio. No, Colonel, we're running out of gas, Bahak said. By now, he had completely guessed Sammy's conspiracy to fish with him. Command, I need the Griffin team to return to the battlefield. Sammy directly called Major General Islam on the ground, and all the pilots heard his words. I'm the command, Griffin team, pay attention, you must return to the battlefield, don't worry about the fuel, there is a tanker in the southwest of you. Major General Islam, who was at the command, responded to the colonel's request and told the Major General, as far as the matter is concerned, it is obviously the most important thing to quickly shoot down a few Indian planes. He does not want the two MiG-29s to increase the throttle and escape. At the same time, he also knows that although the fuel of the F-16 is less than that of the Thunderbolt does not have the ability to refuel in the air, while the F-16A has this ability.